Now, Anna, last time you and I had the chance to chat, we were having a really interesting conversation. You were saying that one of the biggest mistakes that you're seeing a lot of analysts in the field making today is that they're doing things too fast, they're rushing to get their reports to decision makers, and as a result, that's resulting in a lot of shoddy analysis. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that since OSINT has been on the rise for the past, I guess, decade or even more than that, a lot of corporate, intelligence departments use OSINT, which is great. But at the same time, I think that when we're rushing to answer our stakeholders, sometimes we run into misinformation, disinformation. Sometimes we forget who's the audience and what would be important and relevant for them. And then that kind of leads to a little bit of, mistakes. So, what I always think the best thing to do is, first of all, obviously, we all know as analysts, you have to verify your sources, making sure that you're not single sourcing and all that jazz. But also just take a tactical pause. Like, unless you're a first responder, my theory is, nobody's going to die. Um, it is important to be very fast, and even in corporate security, intelligence as we're supporting a lot of different very important stakeholders in the business, but also at the same time I think it's very important to take that tactical pause and think if your information is accurate.
Gotcha. I was feverishly writing down a lot of notes through the course of that answer because there's a couple of different directions I want to take this conversation. But I think before I kind of go into a lot of those points, one of the things that I'd be curious to ask is why do you feel maybe a lot of analysts are kind of stuck or feel stuck in this bad behavior of rushing reports and rushing their intelligence out the door versus taking the time to maybe marinate on things?
Yeah, I think a lot of times those things happen when we're dealing with like breaking events and tactical reports, as opposed to the more deep, in-depth analysis and strategic reports that a lot of the analysts do as well. So when it comes to breaking events and on the tactical side, obviously, all security professionals have this crisis management and response and life safety responsibilities. So part of it is just feeling the responsibility of needing to report as quickly as possible in order to enable our decision makers and stakeholders to make those decisions that they need in order to keep our people safe. But at the same time, I think it's also sometimes that adrenaline rush of like, I just want to get the answer out, and that's kind of what's causing a lot of people to rush.
See everything kind of happen on Twitter or on in the media, and it's like, okay, like you said, feeling the adrenaline to get something out the door really quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And also a lot of times it's like the confirmation bias, like there is a breaking event and we don't know sometimes the motive of if it's an active shooter and the motive of the shooter. We don't know sometimes, and it takes a little longer to dig if the police set a certain parameter or like radius for the shelter in place and things like that in order to be able to evaluate our next steps. Like, is the radius impacting our offices, our people, and things like that. So yeah, it really is really important, can't stress it enough, to take that tactical pause.
Right. And like you said, I'm just thinking in a situation like an active shooter, I know from just my own experiences when I've seen these reports breaking, most of the information that's coming out in those first half an hour, 2 hours after the event breaks, it's notoriously unreliable. There's just so much misinformation that's usually flooded out. So I got to imagine lots of different situations. It's going to be pretty similar.
Yeah.
What are kind of the common or the unintended consequences that might come as a result of uh, that you've seen in the past from rushing a lot of these intelligence reports at the door?
I think sometimes it's just not, evaluating your source. I've made that mistake one time where I was reporting in a new job about a region in the world and an organization, like I guess a terrorist organization that I wasn't too familiar with. And I think it's really important to understand not only your source, but also like the different tactics and the way that, like the motives of that specific organization. So I saw something about, strikes by that organization, and it was a bit exaggerated on one hand, and then the uh, country that was being attacked was not reporting at all. But I just felt like, this is something I need to start drafting a report. And as I'm drafting the report, I come to find out that actually, you know, the attacker has the tendency to exaggerate and sensationalize like the actual, exaggerate their capabilities and the attack. And the other side actually, even when they are being attacked, they love to keep things quiet and not report that they're being attacked because they consider this a sign of weakness and they don't want to show it. So I ended up drafting a whole report that was really not needed, and I think I learned a big lesson then.